Ah yes, the world of Scrap Mechanic. It's filled to the brim with all sorts of creatures, from humans to deadly farmers. But one of the creatures not many people know about are the ducks. They are sentient, many people think they aren't. They wander around nature, often traveling around, posing as hood ornaments. That's why Tom created the Duck Civilization, a safe place for all ducks, where they have homes and they get taken good care of. Sadly, it goes to war. War breaks out between the Duck Civilization and the close-by Duckmany. In this series we will be following the Duck Civilization in preparation of the war and during the war, and what will happen afterwards. Who will win? Jank versus Tank? Let's find out. This is the Duck Civilization at war. Episode 3. The Duck Civilization's best tanks. In the last episode, we went over some of the Duck Civilization's more alright tanks, mediocre tanks, and we covered some of Duckmany's tanks as well. Today, we are going to cover the Duck Civilization's greatest hits. That's right. And we're starting things off strong with the 9 Spud Carrier. The 9 Spud Carrier was based off the infamous 3-inch gun carrier. And like it doesn't really seem like a good tank. It's big, heavy, easy to spot, and incredibly slow. That is true. And the 9 Spud isn't even that big of a gun, especially for a tank destroyer. But that was done with a purpose, because I wanted to make the gun fully aimable. And to this day, it might be the only tank destroyer with a fully aimable gun. Most tank destroyers can aim up and down. There might be some out there that can only aim left and right. But this one has a fully movable gun. However, the best part about the 9 Spud Carrier is not its gun, nor its mobility. It uses very, very inefficient engines, so it can run out of fuel. But the main thing is its armor. The 9 Spud Carrier is officially the Duck Civilization's first super heavy, as even the commander of Duckmany classified it as a super heavy, as it is insanely hard to destroy. It can take a shot from every side and it can still move. Its gun might be able to be taken out in one shot, but its mobility isn't. It can always run away. Now, running away isn't very good because of its slow speed, but the Duck Civilization has studied this armor and is trying to put it to use on other tanks. Yeah, what makes this armor so great? We still really don't know. But hey, we're trying. Next up is a famous Duck Civilization tank. I like these are like the poster boys of the Duck Civilization, and that is the brothers, as we call them. Those being the Val series and the Win series. They are based on 2 plushies, and both named after them as well. One being Valentine, the other one being Winter. It's kind of funny how the Duck Civilization has 2 Valentines. They were built around the same time, although one wouldn't be complete for a very long time. The Win-03 went through absolute production hell. We built it right after the Val, and during an armor test, we fired at it, and we come to the realization we didn't save it. Bam, it's destroyed. Only the hull survived, and for a long time that hull was just standing in the factory. Until eventually we decided to remake it during the production of World War Scrap. While Jordy was rebuilding his BT-7, I was rebuilding the Win-03. But something happened to it again. I'm not really sure. The factory men are always very vague about that. Some say it flew off a cliff, others say it just spontaneously combusted. But anyways, we rebuilt it again, finally. This time it survived, and now it's actually done. And we also gave it some slight armor upgrades from the original version by using some more wood level 3 instead of the wood level 2 that it used. And recently, the Win has become pretty great. Due to it being made out of wood, when armies decided to branch more out into water, the Duck Civilization immediately had an amphibious tank. Yeah, all we had to do is slap something on there, which could make it drive through water. And bam! An amphibious tank. The Win is also kind of reminds me of the CL-1. They both have the same gun and relatively the same proportions. It's like a small version. Although recently we've upgraded the CLs to CL2 and CLA, so it doesn't have the same gun anymore, but you know what, that would actually be pretty ridiculous if the Win had a big gun like the CLAs. Next up is the other of the brothers, the Val. The Val series is pretty much our main light tank. For a long time, for some time, I considered our MBT, but it is a pretty light tank with a small cannon, and its armor is not all that great. But it definitely is my favorite original Duck Civilization design. Once I built it, I was like, yes, I love you. I'm going to use you forever. And the Val-01 had a bit of problems. It was very slow, and yeah, that was most. And its gun, the up and down was done by controllers, which isn't very good. So, of course, Tom made an upgraded version with the Val-05, and is even planning to upgrade it more to a Val-07. The Val-05 adds better speed, lights, and slightly better armor by upgrading the engines, which are now more durable. And we're planning to make a Val-07, which will have better armor and a better gun. Maybe also better speed, but we're not sure about that. Next tank is a rebuild from a famous World War II tank, that being the Char B1 Bis. The Char B1 Bis was feared by the Germans when invading France, as it was one of the only tanks who could survive a lot of German shots, and they had a lot of trouble killing a Char B. Meanwhile, the Char B ate panzers for breakfast. It is an absolutely... It's probably the best French tank from World War II. And so I decided to build it because it's also one of my favorite tanks. And just like in real life, it ended up being really good, especially because of its front armor, which can bounce a lot of shots. I remember testing it. I used the forest card to test it, which was also a relatively new build. And I kept firing, the shots kept bouncing off, and I went to the battle with the Char B against the Tiger. The shots, again, kept bouncing off. It has a gun in the turret, which is a 4-spud. It's nothing special. It's actually a very terrible gun. Like, a 4-spud is if you just want something that can sort of kill a tank. Like, it's the smallest gun you can have. And because the Char B's turret is pretty small, I decided to put that in there. But the main show is in the hull. I think it's a 12 Spud that the Char B has in there, and it's actually really good. Later, Tom would try and fit this gun to many other tanks, as he realized that this gun was surprisingly good. The Char B's 12 Spud remained one of the best guns in the Duck Civilisation army for a long time. Yeah, it's only been recently topped by guns that are on the CL2 and CLA and a bunch of other tanks, really. But at the time, it was probably the biggest gun we had on a tank, which is pretty good. We will later make variations of pretty much all the tanks in this video, except I think for the 9 Spud. For the rest, they've all gotten variants and been used in experiments. The Char B had a supply version where we removed the turret, put a bigger gun in the hull, and made a hatch in it so you can store supplies. And we also made it that it can hook up to carts and bring supplies to outposts instead of using a pickup truck or an armored car. Another tank which is known for having a pretty big gun was the Jank destroyer. It's also known as basically the artillery truck Duck Civilization. It was extremely good when we first built it. It was one of our first tanks because it had extremely long range. Its main purpose is definitely artillery. Its armor is absolute shite. It can't survive a single shot. It was made from the tank steering test vehicle, and I just built on top of that this kind of Katusha rocket launcher looking thing, and then you shoot from just multiple small explosives or one small explosive. At the time I was like, oh my god, look at that range. And it's still pretty good. But its gun has definitely been topped, and it's definitely no longer our best mobile artillery vehicle. But it remains a very good tank, especially from far away. It was even able to shoot 4 small explosives decently far. The main problem is that it's now not really able to do that anymore. We've been trying to figure out why it can't. But yeah, it's pretty good, and it's actually one of the few tanks that Duckmany actually kind of fears. Don't know if they do anymore, but last time we interviewed them for last episode, they said that it was one of the few tanks that they actually feared. So, what do you know? Some of the other greatest tanks.
One that I'm quite afraid of. You have the small mobile artillery truck. The mobile artillery truck can fire very far, which I must say I am quite a bit scared of.
The greatest tanks from the Duck Civilization aren't actually the greatest tanks originally, but they were upgraded so they would become better and have become some of the greatest tanks. Case in point, the tank version 5. The tank version 5 is actually pretty surprisingly good. It is a upgrade from the very first tank. We've been upgrading this entire time. Version 1, version 2, version 3, they all had normal Spud guns. Then version 4 came around and gave it a 6 Spud. And then version 5 still had the 6 Spud, but also gave it actually better armor, metal armor, instead of cardboard. Which now is also kind of outdated, as most tanks now use spaceship block. But it's pretty good. We've had some nice battles with it. So it's also one of the greater tanks. And another great upgrade, which actually also has spaceship blocks in it, is the CL2, which we brought up earlier. Indeed, we talked about the CL2 earlier. And it is exactly what it sounds like. The CL1, but with a bigger gun. And slightly better armor as well. And speed. It's just an all-round better version of the CL1. Yeah, this all came when Jordy said to me, like, if we ever capture a CL1, we're gonna give that thing a way bigger gun, because look how much room there is in the turret. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And then I gave it a bit better gun. The same goes for the CLA, which was actually built earlier than the CL2. There it also was like, what if I just gave it a ridiculously big gun? And with the CL2, what actually happened, a part of it is spaceship block. And that is because we had an accident while testing the gun. It wasn't fully done yet, we just installed the gun. And we ended up blowing part of the tank up, and then we remade it using spaceship block. So that part has better armor now. And what's actually pretty funny is that the CL2 is actually the CLA's like hull, and then the superstructure got removed and replaced with a CL1 turret, and then the turret was edited to give it a better gun. It's this hodgepodge of CL that leads to the CL2. Yes. Another great tank, however, is one of Duck Civilisation's latest, and that being the Churchill. The Churchill is another great, fantastic tank from World War II. Also another very famous one for being one of the few tanks that could stand up to it. And we're just going to include the entire Churchill series because they're all great. Even the Churchill 1. Churchill 1 has a 6 spud and an 8 spud in the hull. The Churchill 3 has, I think, a 9 spud in the turret. And then the Mark 7, I don't know, has like a 12 in there. And they're all nice, they have good armor. Of course, they're slow because they're infantry tanks. But they're also one of the Duck Civilisation's greatest. Basically, any tank that was really good in World War II that has been rebuilt is really good here for the scrap war as well. Indeed, this also shows with the Tigers and the Panthers, which we talked about in the last video, which are also pretty good tanks. In reality, the Tiger should have been in this video, but we decided to cover multiple Duckman tanks in the last one. That being said, there will be more greater tanks in the future. But what they will be, what kind of guns they will have, what kind of armor they'll have, well, I'll have to wait and see. And if you want to drive these tanks that you saw in this video, you can by joining the Duck Civilization Armored Forces. But how do you recruit? Simple. You go down in the description where you'll find Toad 695 Discord. You can also just show up there to ask questions about the scrap war. But in that Discord, we'll be recruiting people to expand our army, as Jordy is not the only one we're fighting against. That being said, next time we'll look at the Duck Civilisation's worst tanks. Oh boy. No, 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 no. Not just after I said that they could join. Just join now before you know what terrible shit we've made, okay? Just join. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and so you can stay notified whenever a new episode of Duck Civilization at War comes out. Goodbye.